After ghosting Rudy, Eris went on a journey with Ghislaine to the Holy Land of the Sword to become stronger. Since then she had been trained alongside Nina, the blue-haired swordsman briefly seen in the anime, and Isolde, the granddaughter of Raida Raya, the Grandmaster of the Water God sword style. Eris' goal is to one day defeat Orsted, so just as Rudy is becoming a better caster at the Academy of Ranoa, Eris is becoming a better swordsman in the Sword Sanctuary. Rudy has so much mana because he used magic frequently during his childhood, while one's mana pool is typically cast in stone during adulthood and doesn't increase any further. A child's mana pool grows significantly through regular training and the use of spells. And there's another reason for this, which is explained later in Mushoku Tensei, and has also been hinted at by Kishirika when she gave Rudeus his Sharingan, Demon Eye. The reason why Sylphiette had white hair is that she consumed an incredibly amount of mana when she had to cushion her fall from great height during the teleportation disaster. White hair is a result of high mana consumption, but the effect can also be temporary. Rudy, for instance, also had temporarily white hair when he used an enormous amount of mana in Volume 15. The reason why Sylphiette had green hair is quite simple. She carried something called a Laplace factor. The demon god Laplace sent his soul and attributes into the world so that he could be reborn again one day. This resulted in his traits manifesting in a small number of individuals, such as Ghislaine and her demon eye, or Rudeus' enormous mana pool. Sylphie has received a talent for magic, and she also has inherited her green hair from Laplace. Unlike Rudeus, Nanahoshi doesn't possess mana. Rudeus was born in the new world, which granted him a new body with mana in it, and importantly, the potential to significantly expand his own mana reserves. But Nanahoshi was simply brought into the new world in her normal body, which lacks any mana. She was just teleported, while Rudeus was completely reborn. While being transported into a new world full of magic and adventure is relatively exciting for many people, Mushoku Tensei shows how terribly an isekai can be. Nanahoshi was thrown into this world without mana, and therefore without any way to defend herself. Unlike many overpowered isekai characters, she also has the desire to return to her family, her friends, her boyfriend, and her old life. For her, this new world is simply bizarre, unsettling, dangerous, and eerie. Soldat Heckler's first name literally translates to soldier in German. His last name Heckler is also part of the name of Heckler & Koch, a famous German weapon manufacturer. But a heckler is also a person who interrupts a performance of a public speaker with his rude, or at the very least critical remarks, which might also hint at how Heckler has attacked Rudy's facade with his constant rude remarks, until it finally crumbled. The appearance of and the subsequent fight with Orsted came as such a shock not only because he appeared out of nowhere, but also because of how easily he could dispatch of the strongest fighter of the group, who until that point had been portrayed time and time again as an extremely powerful and skilled fighter, as someone whose mere existence could inspire fear in the hearts of others, scaring and then easily defeating this armed and desperate man with just his own hands, showed just how insanely powerful he is. And so Orsted had been established as an absolute supreme force, not by having other characters talk about how strong he supposedly is, but by simply showing and illustrating his strength. Rudy's story resonates with us because he's not just another overpowered isekai character. His greatest defeats, the things that hurt him most, aren't inflicted by monsters or dragons. Instead, they are emotional moments, like being left by Eris, or the situation with Sarah. That's why it affects us so deeply. While we might not even engage in battles with monsters or get teleported to a demon continent, being abandoned is something that can happen to anyone. And it's quite remarkable how Mushoku Tensei uses such relatable moments to make us feel empathy with Rudy. In Mushoku Tensei, dragons are usually not hunted by the guild, unless they wander from the mountains into the flatlands and get lost. The dragon Rudy defeated was already severely weakened, and it likely was the same dragon that encountered Orsted and fled from him. This is because Orsted's curse of being hated by all living beings on the world also affects animals. That's also why the ox from season 1 jumped off the cliff instead of just waiting. The reason why Bardigadi wanted to meet and fight Rudeus is no other than his wife Kishirika Kishirisu, who gave Rudeus his Sharingan, aka his demon eye, was really impressed with Rudy and his enormous amount of mana that he was holding inside of him. And since humans tend to be mortal, the immortal Demon King wanted to meet Rudy as fast as possible, before he died of old age. This is actually a problem for Bardigadi, since a decade or two means nothing to him. The reason why Nanohoshi was able to accumulate a massive amount of wealth and political influence was that she received a letter of recommendation from Orsted herself, that she was able to learn the language of the New World in just 1 year, that she had modern knowledge, and that she traveled with Orsted via teleportation devices, and therefore she could cover way more distance. Rudeus actually hated the two beast women Persina and Linia, since they destroyed the figurine of Roxy, Rudy's beloved mentor, in front of Zanoba's eyes. While the whole ordeal that followed had more a comedic character than like a serious battle, especially when compared to the fight with Orsted, Rudy was still so angry that Zanoba was sure that both beast princesses would not survive that day, which then would have triggered a continent-engulfing war back in Millis. Instead, after winning the battle against the two, Rudy established himself as their pack leader. And later, and this is spoiler territory, both of them actually became the mates of Rudeus's family. Rudy Greyrat is like Jaime Lannister. Yes, I know, both of them not only occasionally take an interest in women from their own family, but both are so-called grey characters. Characters who do both good and bad things, and who aren't clearly good or bad. But it's precisely this ambivalence that makes them so interesting and captivating for the audience. Linia is in actuality the niece of Ghislaine and the daughter of Ghis de Doldia, the Beastman tribal leader Rudy became friends with, since back at home she flaunted her status as princess in order to get whatever she wants, and since she was generally ill-behaved, she was sent to study abroad at Ranoa's Magic Academy. But there she also used her status and became a delinquent. After being humbled twice, once by Fitz, or rather Sylphie, and once by Rudy after she destroyed the statue of Roxy, she calmed down. And spoiler alert, in the end, Linia even became the mate of Rudy later in the story. Mushoku Tensei does not have the standard good guy Greg isekai character with an airbrushed personality, and most of the characters within the anime have severe flaws, and this is what makes them so engaging to watch. Seeing how the characters act out their flaws makes them feel way more realistic, grounded and believable. Watching an isekai guy, a Shutten, and a Hikikomori struggle with severe anxiety, trauma, and his appalling behavior is way more interesting than seeing good guy number 96 selflessly save the world. At the opening of the one-sided battle between Dragon God Orsted and Rudeus, Rudeus suffered a grave wound to his chest and lungs, making breathing not only extremely difficult, but forcing Rudeus to create a makeshift back support in order to not have his own blood block his mouth. But Rudeus couldn't heal himself with incantationist magic, because while he could imagine and visualize how water is created from a stream of his own mana, and other offensive magic as well, he lacked the ability to imagine how a mana stream would heal his tissue, hence why he couldn't heal himself. This inconsistency was also picked up by Orsted, further proving his keen senses. Rudeus, after being deeply wounded and having his lungs crushed by Orsted, had not only to rely on his makeshift back support to not have his own blood block his mouth, but he recognized that he was gravely wounded anyway, Seeing how both Eris and Rudeus went down already, he decided to get even by focusing all of his mana into one last desperate attack. And don't get me wrong, this wasn't just a powerful fireball, but somewhat of a nuke. Imagine Megumin launching an explosion spell at point-blank range. This was done in order to take Orsid with him, rather than having him walk away almost unscathed. Rudeus at this point accepted his own death as inevitable, and also believed that both Eris and Rudeus were done for, so he didn't have to hold back.